just gone 10 p.m. I'm in the bivvy bag now. I'm looking out through the mosquito net. I'll be sleeping with that again tonight. Very, very mild. It's been a fantastic day. I'm going to say good night. See you in the morning. Hello, good morning. It's now 5:10 in my field right next to the Fosseway. My profound thoughts, for want of a better expression, yesterday and waking up this morning is just the scale of this road, really. I knew it was a long road. You look on a map and you read the history books, and I mean, I live in Bath, so I've known about the Fosseway nearly most of my life. It's not until you start travelling it you realise just the scale of it and just how it was engineered, up and down dale, straight as a ruler. And just the sheer length of it, actually. And it got me thinking about building the motorways in the 60s. You know, what a colossal engineering effort that was, and the motorway networks. And I remember going on holiday to Weston-super-Mare as a kid and seeing bits of the M5 that had been built but weren't quite open, and just the scale of the engineering works involved. And the Avonmouth Bridge in the 70s as well was on the news a lot, because most of the M5 was built and the bridge wasn't, and all the traffic chaos that caused as the motorway traffic built up, and then it had to go through Bristol to use different bridges. This is on a similar scale, I think, you know, nearly 2,000 years ago. And then I've seen some Roman maps of Britain with their road networks on it, and just the scale of it is just starting to sort of blow my mind a little bit, really. I can't say I'm an expert on historical dates. Things like detail just don't interest me in the slightest, actually. It's more the conceptual stuff, the broader stuff that fascinates me. And this got me thinking about the Roman occupation. I don't know the exact dates, but I think they were here for over 400 years. And to put that in some sort of context, the Industrial Revolution was, 300 odd years ago. So they were here longer than before the Industrial Revolution until now. So, you know, quite a significant chunk of time. That's looking over towards the sun rising. You may just see the slight curl on my bivvy down there. I can only really spot it because I know it's there. I just come up, really. I've got wet feet walking up through the fields, but I just wanted to come up and have a look at these signs, really. It's just really nice walking up and down this stretch of the Fosseway. My tent's in that field just behind us that I said I did a quick look last night, and there's no way people can see it from the road. But just looking towards the stretch I came in last night, behind me is the section I'll be taking when I leave here. That's the section I came in on last night. So that's the A429 curving round that way towards Warwick. And this is the B road looking into the sun that I'll be taking when I leave. I think this wandering round right opposite my bivvy site at 5:30 in the morning is probably going to be one of the highlights of the trip for me. Just the two signs really are sort of blowing me away a little bit. I think sometimes on trips like these you become in your own little bubble, to be honest. You become a little bit detached from the real world. And I've thought about this before, and I think what it is you're constantly thinking about, where am I making for? Where's my accommodation tonight? Where am I likely to pick up water? How am I going to go to the toilet? How am I going to get washed? Those sort of things, you know, what I call the housekeeping things. They're boring and routine, but they've got to be thought about. And also you're constantly alert for what problems are likely to occur. How am I likely to solve those problems if they do arise? And yeah, you become a little bit detached in your own bubble, and then, you know, on Monday I'll be parachuting back into the real world when I cycle to Derby and then get the train down to Parkway. But again, that's in the future. I just want to really savour this moment, to be honest. Old car coming, I better start getting out of the way. I'll just run through the kitchen and eating department, tell you what I bought. So I've got this foam mat just to sit on so I don't get a wet backside. I've been bringing MRE meals. I had the army surplus ones, and I've got a couple of Wayfarer meals as well. So I've got a Wayfarer's sausage and beans for breakfast and a long spoon to eat out the bag. You just literally boil that in water in the bag for 8 minutes, let it sit for a minute, tear it open and eat out the bag. Just the convenience of being able to throw the bag away afterwards. I bought a little heat shield and something to protect the ground. So I love the countryside. I don't want to be scorching grass or anything like that. And I've just got my billy can and everything I need is inside there. I'll go through that shortly. And it's a meths burner. And again, I've just bought a small bottle of spare meths. That's something, again, I can dispose of later on once that's empty. Try to make it as lightweight as possible and as disposable as possible as well. The billy can and lid is all held together by strong elastic bands, and I wedge everything inside it to stop everything rattling. So I've got a carrier bag there for rubbish. I've got a foldable cup, a couple of lighters, just some more foam to pack everything out, and I've got a small copy, a Chinese copy of a Trangia stove in its own little carrying bag. The Chinese copy of a Trangia then is a meth stove, so I literally just light the meths. It comes with its own little stand as well, so it's raised off the ground. Plus, as I said, I've got the heat shield and ground protector as well. And then I'll just put some water in the billy can and it sit on top like that with the lid on. The disposable foil tray just came from a ready meal we had at home. You can just mould it into shape because these Trangia minis do need a heat shield to make them more efficient and to make the water boil quickly. So I've just put some water in for coffee, pour myself a coffee, then I'll top it up, boil some water to start doing the MRE breakfast meal. And I've made up my own coffee sachets at home, made them up with coffee that to the strength I like, and there's a sweetener in there, and again the bags will just get thrown afterwards. This little billy can's quite handy actually. It comes with these retractable curved handles. I find those too hot to lift because this thing pumps out quite a lot of heat once it gets going, and then I tend to just lift it up and down with this handle. I use my spoon and then I'll take the lid off with the spoon like that. That's what works for me anyway. Water took about 6 minutes to boil for a cup of coffee. So first cup of coffee, in fact, is going to be the only cup of coffee this morning because there's not enough water for a second one. I've just used the rest of the water to top the billy can up to cook my breakfast in, and there's no way I'm using that water after it's boiled a plastic bag for 8 minutes. I mean, it may be okay, but I'm certainly not risking it. So one coffee, and coming up onto this morning's breakfast menu, beans and sausages. The billy can's now boiling away. My MRE is in there for 8 minutes, so breakfast on its way. Although this is obviously a complete copy of a Trangia stove with one slight difference, I'm very pleased with it. And I think the one slight difference makes it better than a Trangia, so let me explain. The burner is meths, and to allow you to not need to empty it, it comes with a rubber sealed top, so that's what you wait for it to cool down and then you screw that on. But this is the simmer ring come extinguisher. With the normal Trangias, you just literally try and get that over the flame, drop it on to extinguish the flame. And you know, most times it works, but sometimes it doesn't quite get right. Then you have to try and get a spoon or a twig or something to sort of manoeuvre it into place. Let me show you why I like this so much. This comes with a retractable handle. It's just so much easier to douse the flame with that. And this also acts as a simmer ring as well, and it makes it even easier to simmer as well. If you're boiling something like potatoes or stew or pasta, something like that, and you get it to the boil and then you want to simmer it for 15 minutes, again, trying to get that ring on the flame and take it off afterwards is actually quite difficult with the Trangia. Again, this little handle makes so much difference. That's such a good idea. Simple but brilliant idea, and that's why I really like this. My meal is now boiled for 8 minutes, so let me show you how I extinguish this. Look at the simplicity of that, just easy peasy. I'll take that bag out of there, let it stand for a minute. I'm going to keep the hot water, as I said, not for coffee, but just to wipe everything down and use it for cleaning. I've taken the MRE out of the pan. I'm just letting it stand for a minute. Unbelievably, it seems to drip dry, this plastic. When you first take it out the water and unscrunch it, it's covered in water and you think I'm going to have to wipe that down, but it just drains itself. So it's coming up to a minute. You may see the perforations there. Ever so easy just to tear it across the top. Give it a really good stir and then eat out the bag. There we have it, MRE, meals ready to eat. A piping hot sausage and beans, and there's some decent pieces of sausage in there by the look of it. Piping hot breakfast in a field in the middle of Warwickshire, right next to Fosseway at 6:30 on a Saturday morning. Bon appetit. I'm just stood looking up at the Fosseway with those two signs there, and the top of both of them has got the brown Fosseway historic route sign, and it's got an emblem of a Roman centurion's hat. There's my bivvy spot. You'll see the ground sheet with all my kit on, but you can't see the bivvy from here. It's so low profile, it's hidden behind the grass. It's about 6:45, lovely morning. Had my breakfast, done my ablutions, so it's time to start thinking about packing up. Seeing as I'm doing a bit of a kit review this morning, I'll go through my bivvy and sleep system. I've got my faithful Exped Sinmat UL7 sleep mat. That is absolutely fantastic, love that. And I've got an Exped inflatable pillow as well. I've got my Softy 3 made by Snugpack sleeping bag. That's my summer bag of choice. I've had that since the early 2000s. Fantastic. It's synthetic lining. I do not like down linings. I had a down bag years ago. If you get wet, and I'm clumsy and they do get wet, they get damp patches. They're very difficult to keep clean. That's synthetic bag. I can just take it home after a couple of uses, chuck it in the washing machine, and it's dry the next day. I'll quite often bring in inner as well, which avoids even having to wash it that often, to be honest, because you just take the inner home and wash it. The bivvy is the Terra Nova Jupiter. I've had this about 20 years, and when I took it out recently, I hadn't used it for a few years. You can see it's all starting to perish, and there's all bits on the inside, so this is going to need replacing shortly. I think what I'm going to do, I've seen other people bivvy, and the modern ones tend to have the zip along the side, and egress and ingress seems just so much easier. So I'm going to go for a hooped bivvy. They just feel less claustrophobic having that hoop. It almost feels like a tent, not quite, but almost. But getting in and out is quite difficult. So I'm going to go for a side zip one, I think, next time. Not sure what make yet. I'll probably just go to an army surplus store and see if I can pick up a cheap X-Forces one. I don't bivvy often enough to really warrant spending a lot of money on it. And there's my trusted ground sheet, German army ground sheet. That's just bulletproof, excuse the pun, but it really is just so good for doing things on the ground, cooking my breakfast, sitting. I don't want all that sort of stuff on soil and grass. So yeah, that's pretty much my kit review this morning. That's the Trangia with its lid back on, and then the catwalk on that. Let me give you a tip and a funny story, and they're related as well. It's when I used to use a Trangia years ago. Me and my ex-partner, we were walking the coast to coast walk, Wainwright's coast to coast in Yorkshire, and we stayed on this farm, and I guess one of us, probably me, must have screwed that top on before it had properly cooled down. And anyway, they expand a little bit and contract, and she went to open it and she couldn't get it off, and I said, "Oh, give it her, I'll do it." And I was I couldn't get it on, it just wouldn't budge, and this farmer just happened to go by. "Having trouble, guys?" I said, "Yeah, this can't get the top off." "I'll give it here." Great big strapping guy he was, and he exactly the same as me. And he said, Blimey, that is a bit tight, isn't it? Hang on a second, I'll go and get my lad. He's as strong as an ox. And this boy came over, exactly the same thing. He even had it between his legs, grunting, face going red. Just locked on solid. Do you know how we got it off in the end? The farmer's wife did it with about 1/8 of a twist. She had one of these jam jar openers, you know, the sort of thing to get really tight lids off. It's like a giant pair of pliers which grips the top, and she just went, shh. These 3 grown men had struggled, couldn't get it to shift whatsoever. And I was in my 20s at the time, probably my fittest was the strongest. So yeah, that was quite a funny story. It's now 7:50 AM, 10 to 8 on Saturday, June the 12th. And that's my bivvy site behind me. I've just gone round, kicked all the grass so it's back up mostly. A couple of days and you'll never know I've been there. I'm going to head along here, back on that road, and then I'll be heading that way. Just a couple of little stories actually, nice encounters yesterday actually, which I really wanted to share. Just before I got here last night, as I was approaching that roundabout, the road obviously curves round and then goes straight on. As it started to curve, I noticed there was a bit of disused road. But there's some girls down there cycling, and it was clearly the Fosseway, so I rode down there, and they made a nice comment about the costume. And it was also called Foss Close as well, so that was quite nice. And also yesterday, when I emerged from the gravel, and I thought I was going to go on the main road, but then I went across that farm field, there was a motorcyclist there, and he had all the panniers on, and to be honest, I think he was doing the same as me. He was scrutinising a map. And as I went by, he sort of said, "Are you okay for water?" So he obviously had plenty and was prepared to share it. And I thought that was really nice. I'm not really an advocate of different road users being abusive to each other. We all have to share the road, and I try and be considerate. And it's really nice that somebody from a different form of transport just saw me, possibly in need of water, because it was quite warm by then, and just offered me some of his. So that was really, really nice. Well, it's 9:10 now, and I made a big mistake this morning. When I got up this morning, I nearly considered going back to the roundabout, only half a mile or so back, because I think there were some garages and some shops there, but I thought it's probably too early in the morning, I'll press on. What a mistake.